appear to be missing Commissioner Ye. We've got Jamie, we've got Casey, we have the other commissioners. Casey, would you take the roll, please?
Yes, but give me just one moment. Commissioner Ye is listed as an attendee, so I'm promoting him.
Oh, great. Great, 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 great.
So I just want to give him just a second.
I'm calling. Okay. I'm calling the meeting to order. And as soon as Casey's ready, she will take the roll to check for quorum.
Okay, there we go. Chair Daly.
Here.
Vice Chair Morris.
Here.
Commissioner Ye.
Present.
Commissioner Corrigan.
Here.
Commissioner Valadez.
Here.
And Commissioner Wang.
Here.
We have all 6 commissioners present.
Wonderful. So the next item will be the Pledge of Allegiance. So if Casey, you could bring the flag up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on our agenda tonight is our reorganization. My term as your chair is coming to a close right now. And before we open nominations for a new chair, I just wanted to say thank you to my fellow commissioners for your support this year. It's been a pleasure to chair this commission. I also wanted to thank staff, particularly Casey, who's done a great job all year long, and Donna, who is not with us this evening because she is taking vacation. Also Jamie, who's filling in for Donna now, and all of the rest of the city personnel who have just done yeoman's work this year. And with that, I will open the nominations for new chair. Commissioner Valadez.
I'd like to nominate Vice Chair Morris to become chair of the commission.
Thank you. Do we have a second for that nomination? I see Commissioner Corrigan's hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to second that nomination.
Wonderful. Thank you. And do we have motions to nominate anybody else for the position of chair? Okay. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and call the question for Commissioner Morris for chair. All those in favor of Commissioner Morris as chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission for the upcoming year, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Looks to me like that was unanimous.
It was unanimous. Teresa, did you vote for yourself?
Didn't know if I was supposed to. Okay.
You're allowed to.
Okay. Aye. It's unanimous.
It's
Thank
unanimous.
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And before I pass the gavel, I would entertain motions to nominate somebody for vice chair.
Well, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Corrigan.
Okay. Do we have a second for Commissioner Corrigan's nomination?
I second.
Okay, Commissioner Wang. Are there any other nominations for vice chair at this time? Hearing none, we will proceed to the vote. All those in favor of Commissioner Corrigan as the vice chair for the upcoming year?
Aye.
Wonderful.
Aye.
Also unanimous. Congratulations to Chair Morris and Vice Chair Corrigan. And with that, I pass the gavel and Teresa will run the rest of the meeting.
Congrats.
Thank you. Okay, it's going to be hard without Commissioner Daly being chair, so hopefully I manage this. Thanks all for the votes, and here we go. So second order of business is minutes, I believe, to approve the minutes.
And Chair Morris, we actually do have
So
public comment on items not on the agenda first.
thank you, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So Casey, do we have any speakers for?
We do.
Public comment? Okay, great.
Yeah, we have one person with their hand raised. Give me just a moment. There is only one person. Would you like to allow 3 minutes or a
Yes,
different?
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Dorit Perry would like to speak. I'm going to allow her to talk first, and then I will put up the timer. Dorit, are you there? Ask to unmute. Let's see.
Hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, but it's very low.
Okay. Just a minute, we'll try to fix that.
I'm hard of hearing, so I definitely can't hear it.
Hey, can you hear me better now? How's this? Is this okay?
It is slightly better.
All right, here we go. Thank you, commissioners. Good evening. I'd like to reissue our invitation to commissioners to join us on the pickleball courts at Mitchell Park. If you're new to the sport, we'll introduce you. And if you're familiar, let's play. More than anything, we want to show you the community that is built around pickleball. Our goal is to build community, and that bears repeating. Our goal is to build community. Striping a few courts will absolutely not build community. Los Altos is late to the pickleball game. That means that Los Altos can learn from all the surrounding communities and certainly not repeat any mistakes. As discussed the last time we met, pickleball requires a concentration of courts, a critical mass of players. Failing that, you have not created a pickleball community. We understand that the Parks and Rec staff is recommending a distributed model with a sprinkling of courts at each of the existing tennis courts. We strongly oppose this expenditure of funds. It is a mistake at a time when the spending of public funds should be prioritized. We strongly urge 6 courts be striped at Mackenzie Park. This is our #1 request. We have seen examples of 3 or 4 courts in nearby cities failing. The 3 courts at Escuela, the 4 at Neelon, and the 4 at Mies simply fail to build community. We can benefit from these examples and not recreate errors. Mackenzie Park can and should support 6 pickleball courts. We cannot understand any objection to doing so, yet our request has been denied. Some folks tell me it's because the maintenance yard requires what was once the park's parking lot for their own staff. This recent encroachment seems to be the only possible reason. For years, the maintenance staff parked within their own yard, and now I'm told 32 employees have been told to park in Mackenzie Park. We continue to state that the best location for pickleball courts are 6 courts at Mackenzie Park. We have also advocated for 10 courts at Rosita with appropriate sound mitigation. We're strongly against spending public money to stripe courts at Montclair or Marymead. A distributed model is anathema to pickleball, and these courts are too close to homes and will create significant noise issues. We strongly recommend against spending any money to stripe pickleball courts at Montclair or Marymead and urge the fiscally responsible decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ye, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to address Ms. Perry's comments. She's right when she mentions that if you just
Wait,
kind of
wait, may I just clarify something? Are we allowed to comment on a public speaker? Or are we only allowed to ask clarifying questions?
You are only allowed to ask clarifying questions.
Yeah. So my question to Ms. Perry is, at Mackenzie Park, what because the six pack that you're talking about at Mitchell Park is 95 feet by about 115 feet. So it's about 10,000 square feet. Where would this go at Mackenzie Park? Because there's nothing that big.
Thanks. It will go on top of the existing tennis courts. We have had Steve Sutton come by, who's the Northern California ambassador for Pickleball of North America, and he has measured the courts and drawn diagrams to show that 6 pickleball courts fit easily on the 2 existing tennis courts at Mackenzie Park. And it's a question, Commissioner Ye, of time sharing. So that working with the Parks and Rec staff, we would establish priority hours to share the facility between tennis players and pickleball players.
So there'd be multiple lines kind of crisscrossing.
That's correct. And
Okay.
that's what that exists at Mitchell Park.
Yeah,
And the way
it does. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's just a time sharing question.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same footprint too.
Exactly the same footprint, 6 pickleball courts on 2 tennis courts. And then working with Parks and Rec, you decide, Monday, Wednesday for pickleball, Tuesday, Thursday for tennis, or 8 to 1, and then 1 to 5. There's all kinds of time sharing ways to do this.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. And do any of the other commissioners have questions? Oh, it looks like Commissioner Valadez does. Yes.
My question is not to the public speaker, but I would like something that she said. I'm asking Manager Jamie Chu if she can answer this. If she cannot, that's fine. Is it true what the public speaker says about staff parking?
I do not have that information. I would need to research that and then get back to the commission.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So I can address, I think, what the question is. So the dog park that is going in at McKinsey Park, as a result of that, 12 parking spaces that staff currently uses in McKinsey public parking will be shifted into the maintenance yard. So 12 spaces will open up. There will be the dog park there, and they know that they'll need parking for the dog park, pickleball, and tennis and other people's use. So so that's why the cars are they'll be moved.
Yeah, but that's not really my question. My
Oh,
question
sorry.
is,
Okay.
is there a policy or a direction that city maintenance staff have received to park in the public parking lot
No.
versus constraining their cars to the maintenance yard?
No, it's the opposite. They will be parking in the maintenance yard from now on
Okay,
in order to accommodate the dog park going in.
okay.
And you know what? Manny's here, so he can answer this.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to clarify what's going on. Yeah, there is a plan to move the city vehicles, city employee vehicles inside the maintenance yard, but we're still following the process to get that gated differently. Currently, there is no space in the maintenance yard for any other vehicles right now. So yeah, they will be parking there until we can get that plan completed of changing the gating system at the maintenance yard. But we are moving forward with that plan to get them inside.
Is that like a summer thing or a fall thing or a next year
Yeah.
thing?
It's as soon as we can get it done. I'm hoping to have it done by fall, but we will do it as quickly as we can. We're taking proposals right now on getting that done.
Thank you. Okay, so Casey, are there any other public speakers wishing to speak on not agenda items?
There are no other hands raised.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. So that moves us to item number 2, which is minutes. Does anyone have any corrections or comments on minutes? Yes, Commissioner Valdez.
I think I have a correction. It was a little, maybe just a little bit unclear. It had to do with the vote that we did, the timing of the vote that was passed 4-2 versus the arrival of Commissioner Ye. It wasn't clear from the writing if he was present for that vote, but Commissioner Wang is missing from the list of voters, but I didn't believe she was late. Am I?
She was not late.
So
No,
Is
she's actually listed. It says Daly, Morris, Corrigan, and Wang approved. Opposed were Ye and Valadez.
okay, maybe I'm looking at another agenda item. Oh my goodness, in the minutes. Let me go to the minutes.
Which
I'm
item?
sorry. Are you talking about the minutes for the last meeting?
Talking about the minutes.
Okay. You're right. I have Ye's name instead of Wang. I will correct that because it is 5 members and Wang was present. Ye arrived immediately after that vote.
Okay, so that was the correction that I was suggesting for the minutes. Otherwise, with that correction, I would move to approve unless somebody else had found something.
Commissioner Wang.
Just, I think, a typo. Future agenda items, the last bullet should read pop-up activities update.
Thank you.
And just to point out, I wasn't late last one. I was just a guest for the entire beginning of the meeting.
I will double check with the city clerk's office if I can note that instead.
It doesn't really matter.
Might as well check though.
Okay.
Any other changes to the minutes or concerns that anyone has, any commissioners? Okay, it looks like we're all set with the correction. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Daly, we can't hear you, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Great. I second Commissioner Valadez's motion to conditionally approve the minutes based on the correction noted.
perfect, thank you. And then,
I can call roll.
thank you.
Chair Morris,
Yes,
Vice Chair Corrigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ye, Commissioner Valadez,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Daly.
Yes.
That is unanimous.
sorry for rustling paper. All right, so moving to item number 3, dog park rules. I'm thinking that we need to ask if there's a presentation for this of any sort, if staff has any presentation for us. And I believe maybe Rec Manager Jamie Chu does.
Yes, it'll be an oral presentation. Included in the commission packet is both the staff report and the draft rules, which is an extension of what was existing during the pilot program. A big thank you to Kiefer O'Hara, who is our recreation specialist for facilities. He assisted with the process of researching various cities with existing dog parks to find out what policies and rules they had at their facilities in preparation for the 2 dog parks that are planned upcoming. So he is here and available should the commission have any questions. But he worked in collaboration with the subcommittee. And before you, and it also included in your packet, is the proposed adjustments to the rules. Essentially, what we are looking for from the commission this evening is recommendations that can be that staff can take into consideration towards implementation once the dog parks are in place. The changes are highlighted in yellow. Those that are not highlighted in yellow were existing from what was in place during the pilot program. And so again, both recreation specialist O'Hara and then maintenance services director Manny Hernandez is also available for questions should they arise. But that is it for my presentation. And so we'll open it up for discussion and suggestions by the commission.
Right, I think it's any clarifying questions that commissioners may have at this time, and then we'll move to public comment should there be any. So does anybody have any clarifying questions regarding the document with rules? Yes, Commissioner Ye.
Jamie, why'd you guys prohibit alcohol?
So if I remember correctly, I believe for the reason why we have it specified for unless it's with an event permit, it is required for an alcohol permit. And so that is why it's designated here. That is my recollection, that it is required if there is alcohol for a specific event purpose.
Okay, so you can pretty much just stand on the other side of the fence with a beer, but
I believe there is also, but yep, maintenance services director Hernandez.
Just to make it as simple as possible, alcohol is prohibited in all of our city parks except with a permit.
okay, all right, thanks.
Any other clarifying? Yes, Commissioner Valadez.
Why did you add the bullet about the dogs must be spayed or neutered? Especially given that we're allowing dogs as young as 4 months, but you really should not spay dogs that young, so you're effectively eliminated young dogs.
So from
Did
the
I make myself clear?
Yes, it's clear.
yeah, so from the research we did, we didn't find anything that suggested that as a rule. This was a rule suggested by Chair Morris during our subcommittee meeting to talk through the rules.
I can clarify it, and I didn't realize the part about the, I didn't think about the younger one, so we may have to, this will be for discussion, I think, but it's on there due to the outcome of the Hillview pilot program. So we can discuss it more, but that's why that bullet point is on there. So let's put it in discussion. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions for staff?
It looks like Commissioner Daly has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Daly, thanks.
I'm sorry, actually, I will save what I have to say until we have an opportunity to comment. It's not, I actually don't have a clarifying question. I have a comment, so I'll hold it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I do not see hands up, so I don't know what I need to do, Casey, in order to see that. So if the commissioners can wave their hands, I can see all of you. So that will be helpful for me tonight. And as we go forward, so you may hit the little, hand up button, but also please wave your hand so I can see you if you have questions and I'm not seeing you. And Casey, I'll just have to rely on you and we'll work out how this works for me on my.
I will, I will let you know if anyone puts their hand up.
Thank you.
If you're ready to move to members of the public, we do have 2 in attendance, but I don't see hands raised for public comment at this time. So maybe give them just a moment. So they knew we were moving to that portion. But I don't see hands raised. So I think you may be fine to move on to discussion.
Okay, great. So seeing no public hands up for speaking, let's go to discussion. And Commissioner Valadez.
So I have a bunch of questions and comments. I guess we'll just go in order of your bullets, but there are some bullets that I believe are strongly missing. So let's take on the spay neuter. To reiterate, young dogs, small dogs shouldn't be neutered before 6 months. Bigger dogs, there are various schools of thought, but some say as much as a year to 18 months as far as spaying or neutering. Older for, it depends on the history of the dog. There are good reasons why you just saying that, that all dogs must be spayed or neutered means that we're effectively eliminating a lot of young dogs. So what I would suggest, and then combined with the next, the general intent, which is, I'm assuming there was some implication or that intact dogs, whether they're male or female, are somehow more of a threat or more dangerous. And I would contest that. An ill-behaved, misbehaving dog or an aggressive dog can be intact or not intact. I totally agree with female dogs that are in heat should not be in any way, even in preheat, they should not be allowed to come in. But just to automatically not allow intact dogs that might be, show dogs or very well trained, professionally trained dogs, I think that might be kind of going too far. We have the reliance on the vicious dog aspect that, is in our municipal code. If any dog, whether intact or not, becomes vicious, then we should definitely remove that dog. But I personally have a problem with requiring all dogs, even if we said, 2 years and older must be spayed or neutered. It still smacks to me of presuming something very bad about intact dogs that may not be there. So that's my comment on that. Should I move on to next bullets, or do we want to debate this point?
I don't think it's a debate. I want to clarify something though with staff, if I may, before we go on. So I think they're looking for our input, our feedback on this list, understanding that part of the list that was already used, it was voted on by the commission. The highlighted ones are the new pieces of information that are being suggested or possibly added. So if you keep in mind that we went through this as a commission once and voted, and we're adjusting accordingly. So I think what I would say is please make your comments, and I'm guessing staff is going to take all of the comments. Perhaps Kiefer, you can let us know if you're taking the comments, and we'll be working with what the commissioners are saying and then making adjustments as needed.
All right. So
okay?
And by the way, I'm speaking from a position of being a pack owner all my life. So I have a lot of training experience with dogs, and including rescue dogs, purebred dogs, regular dogs, mutts, whatever.
Okay. So I would say let's have you continue if you have a few more things, and then I see Commissioner Ye's hand, so we'll move to him after. Okay.
And by the way, at this point, there's something that was highlighted, so it was added since
Right.
Hillview.
100%.
Okay. Female. Okay. So then the next point is about the alcohol prohibited unless a special event permit has been issued. I do not agree with that. In fact, one of the largest dog park owners in the state, which is Los Angeles County, they used to allow permits with alcohol because they have picnic tables inside many of their parks. So they would allow people to get permits and have parties. And they eventually disallowed this practice because of the intoxication effects. And I'm reading from their report, intoxication effects on humans that resulted in the mismanagement of dogs. And so they now disallow it throughout the county. You cannot have alcohol if you're taking your dog into a dog park. I really have an issue with that. Humans have to be completely attentive to their dogs. We expect them to be in control of their dogs. And if they're partying with some alcohol, that will limit that. Okay, my next point is, most dog parks have reminders to people to take whatever they bring into the park with them when they leave. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm bringing community toys, and then that creates a problem. So most parks will say, do not leave toys, balls, anything Otherwise, it'll be disposed by city staff for health reasons. That's a typical notation on leaving stuff at the park. Next, only dogs should be allowed in the park. A lot of times people will try to bring their little piggies or all kinds of animals, little goats. And we kind of need to be specific. Only dogs are allowed in the park. We also should not allow bikes or skateboards or scooters in the park. And I understand our parks are small, but it would be just like somebody to park their bike inside the park while they're playing with their dog, and we can't have that. Also, owners may not, we should add a point about owners may not leave their dogs unattended in the park. I know we have the thing about always in voice control, but because our parks are so small, somebody could be having a picnic outside, throw their dog in the dog park, and still believe that they're in voice control of their dog. And I don't think that's the intent of our rules. The dogs may not be left unattended in the park, even if the owner is within vocal or visual range outside the park. Next, there is the point about training classes are not allowed. I would like to amend that to training classes are not allowed unless a permit is given. As a city, we may want to have some training sessions inside our dog parks. So I would ask that we not cut ourselves off from that possibility. That could benefit community dogs in a huge way. Next, we need to add a bullet that no sales or rentals of any items are allowed in the park without a permit. A lot of times people will come, they'll bring their dog, but they're really in business to sell things, leashes, toys, things like that. So we need to, unless we want to allow that with a permit, which I'm okay with, no sales or rentals of items without a permit inside the park. You already say, I think you had, maybe you don't. I thought there was one about no grooming. No.
No, there isn't.
Okay, yeah, most parks will have no grooming inside the park without a permit. For the same reason with sales and items. You could say sales of items or services without a permit. The other thing is the issue of licenses. I know that we require all the dogs to be licensed, and I completely agree with that. The nitpicky thing happens where people walk up to you and say, where's your dog's license tag? Prove to me that your dog is licensed. And for those of you that own dogs, your dog already carries a license, a name tag, they may have a couple of other tags. And those license tags are quite large. So if you have a tiny dog, it can be quite onerous. So I would like to add a bullet that says, licensed dogs are not required to wear their license tags, but owners must have their current paperwork on hand. They could just have a copy in their pocket or whatever. And that way, if animal control or city staff or a fellow resident wants proof of license, they can get it without burdening the dog. Also, I think, this is obvious. A lot of places will say it relates to the alcohol, but it also relates to drinks and soft drinks. No glass should be allowed inside of a dog park at any time. Those are my comments.
Great, thank you. And so Commissioner Ye had his hand up first, so I'm going to go to him next. And then I see Commissioner Daly is waiting also. Thank you, everybody, for raising your hands. So Commissioner Ye, please.
Yeah, so it's great that all these things that Commissioner Valdez brought up, that they're all valid points, and they could occur at some point in the history of time. But what tends to happen when we institute rules is that the more rules you have, people tend to, if you make them specific, people will just follow them if they want to, or not follow them because they're so specific. If you make rules within the spirit of the concept, it's a whole lot easier. So while we've been speaking, I'm looking at rules from the surrounding communities. San Jose has 7 rules, okay? And they're really straightforward. Basically, don't have your dog be ridiculous, okay? Cupertino has fewer rules like that. They're just, All dogs must wear proof of license and have proper vaccinations. Owners are responsible for picking up after their dog. These things make sense. The more rules we make, it's just going to be people kind of avoiding the rules because they're so specific.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Daly?
I'm really opposed to the rule about having your dog spay or neutered. I have a 10-year-old unaltered male lab, black lab. He's a purebred. I've bred him. I have had dogs all my life and agree with what Commissioner Valadez said, that the status of whether or not your dog's status, whether or not they've been altered, really doesn't impact their social behavior with other dogs and with people. What impacts that is the dog's training and its environment. So I would be precluded from bringing my dog to the dog park because of that rule. And I think we should strike that.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen that rule in any city around us.
It's more or less a personal choice, whether you alter your dog, be it male or female, whether you spay or neuter your dog. There are reasons that people may have for either approach. And unless there is a real specific need on the part of a compelling reason to override that liberty, I think just, absent a compelling reason to override that liberty, we shouldn't step in there and try and create a rule where no other cities do, and where we would be, my dog's licensed, he has all his vaccinations and everything else. I would be in compliance with every other rule except for that one.
Okay, and is that all you have to say regarding the rules? Okay, gotcha. Any other comments from other commissioners? Commissioner Wang, Commissioner Corrigan, nothing. Okay, Commissioner Wang, yes.
I have a question, and I'm sorry, I'm not a dog owner, so this could be stupid, but the rules, they specify like food or drink for adults. Is there anything that needs to be in there, like for the dogs, like whether or not dog food is allowed, treats and things like that? Or is that just?
I can tell you what was done during the pilot, if that helps. So the practice during the pilot was typically there was one gentleman who pretty much always brought a gallon of water with him. And then there were a bowl or two bowls of water available for the dogs that were at the dog park. And they all just shared it, and that they just keep refilling it. So the dogs had bowls of water while they were there. People had treats typically in their pockets, and dogs being treat driven often would know which people to go to get their treats. So I did not see, and perhaps Vice Chair Corrigan can address this, but I did not see people putting food down for the dogs at any point in time. It was always just a treat or two here and there. So I don't know, maybe that would become an issue, but it never was during the pilot program. Would you agree, Vice Chair?
Yeah, I would echo that. It was really the focus was everyone wanted to make sure water was available, of course, but food didn't seem to be an issue.
Okay, good. And then so any other comments or questions from any of the other commissioners? No, okay. I was just going to, oh, yes, Commissioner Valadez.
So please clarify then the comment about food. Is that referring to human food or dog food, or both?
I think that was referring to food, like human food, like bringing your lunch, your meals, whatever, and having it within the pilot program. Again, I believe that was part of the original.
Because it was pretty much a pretty common practice for groups of people to picnic at the dog park. And I always thought that was against the rules, but they didn't seem to care. And I think because they interpreted, I only talked to one person, I never tried to police or anything, but they interpreted that to mean no dog food. And so I said, oh, well, maybe you're right. So I just walked away. But I would suggest that we clarify this bullet and basically say, picnicking and, is not allowed. Drinking fluids is allowed, of course, but picnicking with food is not allowed inside the dog parks. If that's what you really want to do. Sometimes people get offended when doggies come jumping off, looking for their food. It's different from a controlled activity with treats, which I'm hoping we're not going to prohibit, because treats are the best way to help condition the youngest dogs to socialize properly. So some people are afraid of even treats being in a dog park because they say that it might incite aggression, but that's really not my experience. That dog is being aggressive for entirely different reasons, not because of the food, and probably needs to be addressed. So I would suggest that this bullet needs to be clarified a little bit.
Okay, and I would actually like to ask a clarifying question that I think Maintenance and Service Director Manny Hernandez might know the answer to, if he's available. Great, thank you. So we did have the no food on the last round of rules for the pilot program. And again, I never saw an issue with that. But what I'm wondering is if this gets clarified, left on, clarified, however it is, what if there were bowls of dog food, say, brought for the animals? Would that be any issue, do you think? Like I'm thinking crows, I'm thinking, or even human food. Would there be any concerns by staff regarding that?
If owners were to leave the food there, there probably would be an issue. But as far as human food goes, we would just assume that humans would dispose of the food in the trash cans just the same way they do in the parks in general. I think the reason in the past that we would recommend that rule be included for human food is people would, as one of the commissioners was saying, tend to have their food on them or picnic inside the dog park. And if dogs jump on them, and from experience from other cities, we've heard that if somebody has food on them, sometimes a dog will friendly jump on them just to get closer to that food. And that's when people get hurt. So as far as people eating food in there, dog treats, fine. I don't think my experience with that in running dog parks in the past, that isn't an issue. People know how to manage those. And same thing with dog food. I don't think people really bring dog food though, because other dogs will eat it. So that's usually not a problem. It's the human food we want to keep outside the fence. That's all.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks for clarifying that. And then I will, so staff actually, they'll be making the decision on this. So I was going to add to the spayed or neutered conversation. So the reason that I suggested this, and it came to our attention during the pilot program, that there was one particular dog who was not neutered, and there were people who use the pilot program regularly who commented specifically about the dog not being neutered was the problem. So when I suggested this be put in, that's why those were experienced dog owners. There was an issue with it. So I thought, well, let's just deal with this problem. So I would say, in my opinion, this bullet point, whether it's in or not in, that question needs to be probably, the answer to that question probably needs to be sought out by a number of veterinarians, but that's up to staff to figure out on that one. So, and now I see lots of hands because of what I said. So Chair, Commissioner Daly's hand was up first.
It is impossible to enforce such a provision. No, what are you going to do? A female dog being spayed is undetectable. There's nothing you can, I mean, you can't physically inspect the dog and know that it's been spayed. An altered male, I mean, if you really know what you're looking for, you can recognize an altered male, but it's just not practical. Now I understand some residents may be concerned if there's an aggressive male that's trying to
assert himself.
You know, if there's a male dog that is sort of amorously pursuing all the females in the dog park, that's a problem that violates other rules that we have, like having voice control of your dog. So I would suggest that there are other rules that can govern the behavior that we're trying to prevent, and that this particular suggested rule is totally unenforceable beyond my view of whether or not it's appropriate. It's just not enforceable.
Great, thank you. And I'm afraid I didn't see whose hand went first, but I think Commissioner Ye and Valadez both have their hands up. So if I may, I'm going to Commissioner Ye first because I think that's what I saw. Okay.
Yeah, and so in general, this is like kind of like the risk factor section of any S1 or 10K or something. It can get out of hand, especially trying to generate rules based on anecdotes or one-off incidents. It's not a good way of doing things, just kind of in general in life. What Commissioner Daly was saying, if the dog that Chair Morris was mentioning was aggressive or something, that falls under the dogs considered to be vicious may be asked to leave ordinance. Okay, the spirit of the rules are generally here. Adding more, I mean, why not have any dogs that murder crows on a regular basis are not allowed? Any dogs that kill rodents on a regular basis are not allowed, because it's already in the spirit of another rule. Just
Right.
adding them for one-off incidents or anecdotes from people, it's not helpful, because you can just get this to be like 50,000 bullet points long, and still you're not going to cover everything. But the general spirit of the things I'm looking at are covered.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Commissioner Valadez.
Hi, I think, I don't think that you're, I mean, I'm going to speak for you a little bit. I know that you're just simply taking public input and trying to manifest some kind of a constraint so that that concern gets eliminated. But I think underlying that position is, it's not that, I'm going to stand apart a little bit from Commissioner Ye. You know, you're saying nitpicky rule. I don't see it as that. What I see is that there's a lot of miseducation going on the part of dog owners and non-dog owners about what an intact animal, and by the way, all of my dogs have always been neutered, but I have great respect for people that decide to keep their dogs intact. And there is zero correlation. There might be correlation. Let's say there's zero causation that if a dog is intact, they are automatically more vicious. And so we as parks commissioners should take on the role of educating the public so that if somebody comes to us and say the dog that continues to be aggressive, they happen to be an intact male, therefore I want all intact males gone because they're clearly more vicious. We have to tell them there's a difference between that dog being aggressive and they should be removed and all intact dogs. They are not by nature more aggressive. So we need to look at behavior and not physiological status. And I don't think that, you know, having the discussion is very helpful, because I think for any member of the public that may ever watch this video, it's important that they learn that. And it's also important for us as commissioners to learn that. I do have, people are always looking for ways to sidestep rules. And I think anything that has a basis in safety should not be criticized as an incidental or non-essential rule. That is my general position.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Ye.
Yeah, I just want to point out, soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, has 17 rules total for that game, which is played everywhere. We have 15 here.
Okay, thank you.
Soccer doesn't have rules, soccer has laws, and there's a whole different.
17 laws, sorry.
So do any of the other commissioners have any comments that they want to make regarding the list of dog rules that are in front of us? If not, again, I have a couple and I'll just go through mine briefly. There's one bullet point that has a lot within it, and it's the third bullet point down. It says owners must always be in voice control of the dogs. I think that should be its own bullet point. And then keep your dogs on leash outside the field area and always keep leash in hand to help control your dog. I think that should be a bullet point. If they're going to be used, I think they ought to be their own bullet points. Dogs considered to be vicious may be asked to leave, and then having the municipal code, I believe that should be its own bullet point. I, having been the one to suggest the spayed or neutered, again, that was based on numerous comments from people who attended regularly the Hillview pilot program and had their dogs there. So I am not attached one way or the other. I'll leave it to staff to decide about that. The only other thing I would add, though, is it might be worth reaching out to the group that formed as a result of the pilot program. And I believe it's something Preservation Society, and I think Commissioner Daly knows the whole name for it. Hillview Dog Park Preservation Society, but maybe reach out to them and see what they have to say about that particular bullet point. And if they're not attached to having it, then I'd say, in my opinion, I'm fine with it not being there. Alcohol not being prohibited, that was talked about when Vice Chair Corrigan and I met with staff, and it came down to you had to have a permit. I would second what Commissioner Valadez said about just no alcohol, because the reason that was suggested as a bullet point was it was a problem during the pilot program. And that's why it was brought to the attention. It wasn't just like, let's put as many restrictions on as possible. It was a problem. And again, a number of people brought that up, that there was a issue with heavy drinking on the weekends, and then volume went up greatly with that. And lack of attention to their pets also went up with that. Let's see. I thought that, and I don't know if this is put in an order that that it would be done for the sign, but the animal control number, the Los Altos non-emergency, I thought those would not be as bullet points, they'd be as information. And then the part about Los Altos assumes no liability, blah, blah, blah. And then the very bottom that is in all capital, owners are legally responsible. It felt to me like those two things belong together, not as two separate bullet points. So that's my input on the list. And now, hopefully I didn't say anything too controversial, but if any other commissioners have anything else to say about this, please raise your hand. And I don't see any. So given that, I think we may be done with this item number.
Yeah, I just want to point out to Casey at the bottom, the word legally is spelled wrong.
I didn't create this document, but I can fix it.
Okay, so is everybody happy with the input that we've given and ready to move on? Okay, great. And Rec Manager Chu, did you have anything to add?
No, just wanted to say thank you for all of the commissioners' comments. It was very helpful to get this feedback, and we will definitely take that into consideration when we make the adjustments to the rules going forward for the 2 new dog parks.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so item number 4 is our fiscal year 2022-23 work plan. And does staff have anything they want to share with us about this?
The only reminder I would like to provide is that with the hopeful confirmation or recommendation of the work plan going into this next year, the commission should discuss in preparation for their joint meeting with City Council, which is planned for Tuesday, May 3rd. The meeting is generally allotted 20 to 30 minutes for each of the commissions that will be presenting information that evening. And so it is a time to not only review accomplishments from the past year, but also direction and presentation of the work plan of what the commission would like to achieve over the next year. So that should be part of the discussion of how the commission would like to present the information, in addition to obviously finalizing what that work plan is going to be for the next year.
Great, thank you. I also wanted to add that we were going to have a new commissioner join us this evening, but that's changed. And he withdrew his desire to be part of our commission. So it'll be us for now. And one of the reasons we rolled the work plan over was so that we could hopefully allow someone new to put themselves into what they'd like to do. As that is not going to happen this evening, I'm wondering if people have any changes they'd like to make, or if we can look at it and agree that we've got it where we want it to be. Do I need to take public comment on this? I'm sorry, Casey.
So are there any clarifying questions first
Okay, thanks.
from what Jamie just explained as the process?
Any commissioners have clarifying questions? Are we all clear? Okay, looks like everybody's good.
Okay. We do still have members of the public attending. So now is the time for public comment if they would like to comment on this item. Giving just a moment. But I don't see hands raised, so it looks like you are good for discussion.
Thank you. So I'm hoping that the commissioners had a chance to look at the attachments that were included with the agenda, and much of it we saw the last time we met. So there's nothing new in the documents that were provided to us in the last meeting. So again, my question would be, are there any changes that anyone would like to make to our 2022-23 work plan? Or are people happy with, okay, Commissioner Valadez, and then I saw you, Vice Chair Corrigan.
I have a question on the work plan on page 1. In the middle, the Naturescape ribbon cutting, that is planned for fall of 2022. You know, I go out there a lot, and I was just out there 2 days ago. Sure doesn't look like it's close to being ready for a ribbon cutting. Is Director Manny on board?
It
Did he take
doesn't
off?
look like he is on anymore.
Okay. I mean, the logs are still sitting around. They're not stripped. There's no land work yet. They're so I don't want to sign up to a work plan that we're not really going to get done on such a near-term item.
So during the discussion, I actually just sent him a message, so perhaps he can log back on.
Okay.
And if there are
Okay,
any other discussion points, we can maybe address those while we wait for that piece.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, and so then it would be Vice Chair Corrigan, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair Morris. I would like to request being added to the Shout Park Playground Subcommittee, because I checked with the city and the staff advised that I live greater than 1,000 feet, my residence, from that area. So there's no geographic conflict of interest, but it is a neighborhood park that I'm very familiar with. Our child grew up playing there, so I have a lot of, input on that park. So that's my request, is to be added to that subcommittee.
I've added you, Commissioner Corrigan.
Great, I wasn't
Vice
sure.
Chair Corrigan.
Thank you.
It's gonna take us a few months to get this right. Okay,
I'm so sorry. You can ask Pete. It took me an entire year to say that correctly. I will do my best.
it takes a while. Any other questions or changes to the work plan that people want to make, or are we all happy? Okay, I had a couple I thought of myself, so just want to make sure I got everybody. With the pop-up activities.
Morris,
So, yes,
Morris,
I'm
you didn't
sorry,
s-
Commissioner Valdez.
Yeah, I wondered if I could be added to the Community Events Committee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So with pop-ups, my original intent when I brought this up was for commissioners to take this and run with it and rely as little on staff as possible for staff time with this. So when it's worded as work with staff to schedule and plan interactive activities, I'm wondering how, if that feels to me like it's going to be kind of staff driven, and I want to make sure this is commissioner driven. So that we're only asking staff for the help we need in order to be able to do the events that we agree we're going to do. And so I'm wondering about wording that differently so that it says that commissioners will, determine what pop-ups to do, how to do them, and then ask for staff for whatever help they may need to pull it off, basically. So, because I was seeing it as even off hours events and weekend events, and I do not want to burden staff with any other jobs to do, and I'd like it to be more of a commission-driven item. So if there's no objection or input, it would be, in my opinion, good to put commissioners will be, determining what they are, how to do them, and then asking staff for some support here and there. Is there any reason why we couldn't do that? Recreation Manager Jamie Chu.
My only suggestion is that, we would like to collaborate, and obviously staff is here to support the commissioners in their endeavors. And I think, especially with Director Leahy, including, our department goals and mission, those were taken into consideration when the commission put the work plan together. And so I definitely understand kind of the thought behind it, but ultimately we do work as a team together, staff and the commission. And so I think as it's worded, I think the intent is to, work together, and whether it is the commissioners that kind of come up with those brainstorm ideas, it would still be great to collaborate. And so I think in the spirit of that idea, I think it would be great to, I think how it's worded it would help to kind of solidify that collaboration. But that's kind of what I think would work well together. And in past events that we've done together with the commission, it's worked well in the past.
Great. So, and I hear what you're saying, and I would like to pause and come back to this because I can see that we have Maintenance and Service Director Manny Hernandez, and in order for him to not have to stay on the call, I'd like him to be able to answer Commissioner Valadez's question.
Sure. Can I get that question again so I have clarity?
Sure. Director Hernandez, this is Janine Valadez. On page 1 of the work plan, in the middle of the page, the Naturescape. My question was just based on my, I visit it quite often, and I was there 2 days ago. I wanted to know if the fall 2022 target date for ribbon cutting, and I'm assuming that ribbon cutting means the area is functional and ready for the public to use. Is that a correct assumption? Because it didn't seem like there's a lot going on out there in terms of preparation, and it's already April. I see fall as being the beginning of September. I know it's September 21st, but most kids think when school starts, Naturescape is ready. So is that really feasible, or should we slip that target date?
As plans are moving forward right now, that is still the target date. We see fall as September, October. We see fall as before the rainy season, really. So we're going to try. That's our plan right now is September, October. But But yeah, that's really what our target is. We have the plans, the first draft of the plans of complete plans for this program were just completed this last week. So we're reviewing that with the landscape architect. And once those get complete, we're going to schedule the install. So
can we change this to October 2022 instead of fall? Just to be
sure,
clear to the public?
sure. If you want to, you can put it October. Once again, we're shooting for September or October. So if we do it sooner, that's fine.
And you
Hey
get,
Manny, who are we using as the landscape architect?
Verde.
Oh, okay, good.
thank you.
Sure.
Yes, thank you for coming back on the call, and I appreciate it too. Okay, so okay, I want to go back if it's okay. Does anybody have any other questions regarding what we just heard about the naturescape? Everybody's fine with that? Okay. So the pop-up, I'm going to be very frank. I want to do some things this year. I felt like we didn't get a lot done last year. So the concept I had when I came up with the pop-up idea was, look, this is simple. We can do it. We can come up with a few things. And what I don't want is to get it bogged down in, we don't have staff time. And so I really think we can do this as a commission and get these things moving. And I want to make sure that that happens. So if you feel that the way it's worded is going to support what I'm saying, then that's great. But I really want to have things happen, and for we as a commission to start having things happen this year. So that's my intent with that. And it isn't to not work with staff. It's just to have this be a truly commissioner driven action item to take within our work plan. And be aware, other commissioners and vice chair, I was going to ask for everybody to tell us what their superpower is. So maybe at the next meeting, we can agendize that. What talent do you bring to the table that we might be able to utilize in this kind of pop-up idea, so that we can come up with some things that are a little more wide ranging. I'm kind of a craft person. So I think it would be great if all commissioners were involved in some way with this one. And I can see Ms. Richardson has her hand up.
Thank you, Chair Morris. I think the biggest consideration that Donna and I, Chair Legge, staff liaison, Director Legge, and I discussed for this is that the working with staff was mostly about scheduling. We don't allow pop-up programs in our parks without prior notification. So many of our parks, some of our parks have reservable spaces, many do not. And we would need to have prior notification and be able to alert the correct people and departments. And so I think that's the reason that staff is listed under that particular item.
Okay, and again, I'm all for it. I just want to make sure we get something happening in the parks. Yes, Commissioner Valadez.
What about suggesting this wording for this box? Plan interactive activities to be facilitated by commissioners, may include collaboration with other commissions. Coordinate all schedules with staff.
I think it's great. I would add work with and coordinate all schedules with staff.
That's
Because we
great.
want to work with staff on this.
Sure.
I just don't want us to bog down and, like I said, everything I said. So I'd be happy with that if staff would be okay with that. So no.
No, I'm saying unless there's an opposition, this doesn't require a motion, just to update the wording.
Right.
So I will use the wording that Commissioner Valadez suggested.
Perfect. Thank you. And then, but work with staff. I mean, it's not just
Correct.
asking staff for the right, schedule. It's like, you guys will have great ideas too. So let's go. Let's, you have some really fun things. I noticed there's a beading presentation coming up in the next couple of weeks too. So, there's great stuff. We can all work together on this. Okay.
I have a
And
general
Commissioner Valadez.
I have a general question. Casey, on the wording of the assignments, I notice, a lot of them start with work with staff, but then some of them do not. Is there a rationale behind that?
So some of these are carried forward from previous work plans, and it may have been a different leadership style at that time. There are some that do require direct interaction with staff. It would be impossible for the Parks and Rec Commission to work on a scholarship program without staff input and without staff working alongside them throughout the entirety of the process. If there are others that you have suggestions on, we can certainly entertain those. But some of them, community events is another example. Those are going to require staff as well. I can't think of a way that just the Parks Commission could do a community event without staff or city assistance. So that is the usual rationale. If it would require city assistance or staff help or scheduling, then it should have work with staff at the beginning of the assignment list or the assignment description, sorry.
Okay.
I have a question about that. Doesn't it, every item on there, doesn't it require working with staff for every item?
Right off the bat, I can tell you community outreach may not. You don't
But-
necessarily need us to be able to reach out to the community and to interact with your fellow citizens.
Okay, I would think we would get the approval that we would work as a commission and then we would ask staff approval. Okay, all right, great. Thanks. Any other comments or questions for the work plan? Okay, I think we're done with the work plan, that part of the work plan discussion. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Ye.
No, this is just for Casey again. The word relevance misspelled.
Thank you, Yang. Can you tell me which?
Page 13.
What?
My numbers may be different than yours, because if you're on the work plan, I've got 19 and 20.
Oh,
Is it on the first page or the second page of the work plan?
it's on the overarching themes for the 2020 organizational assessment.
Oh, great. I will go
Oh,
back
sorry.
to that. So that is, again, something that was submitted.
Okay.
I will take a look. Thank you.
And again, I don't really care about this. I know you just want it to be right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So what we need to talk about then regarding this subject is who's going to present it.
Don't you?
Who wants, sorry. Sorry, Commissioner Valdez, what?
Don't you present it, Chair Morris?
No, I don't have to. I did last year do part of the presentation. It doesn't have to be the chair. It doesn't have to be the vice chair. I had actually thought that Commissioner Daly might like to do it. And so I mentioned that to him, that he might like to do it, or it can be split, by the way. It can be two people, which is what we did last year. It was a split of two people doing the presentation. So I'd certainly like to give the opportunity to commissioners to be able to choose who's going to do this and the date that we'll be doing it. It's May, my brain's not grabbing this, May 3rd. So you have to make sure you're available to be able to do that. And maybe it can be clarified. I can't remember. This gets agendized obviously for city council. Is it the beginning of the city council meeting typically?
It's rolling from the beginning, and we're typically not first. So you kind of have to like figure out who's going to be presenting and how long-winded or short they may be. And so it does kind of take a while. And for the newer commissioners, it's a good thing to do, because you kind of are a face, like the city council could put a face on the like members of their commissions. And a lot of us have done it already. So, and maybe it's a little bit of like, it's not fun to wait around for a while, but it is beneficial, I think, for yourselves.
and it's interesting. You learn what the other commissions are doing, and typically it's no more than 20, 30 minutes from what I remember and what we discussed earlier. So it's not a long presentation. So any volunteers?
I can't.
It's again, May 3rd, and meeting usually starts at 7 and will be somewhere in that. I'm sorry, Manager Chu.
Yes, so the time has not been set yet. It is not one of the regular city council meetings. It will
Sorry.
be a special meeting on Tuesday, May 3rd. They're currently confirming the start time. Last year, or I shouldn't say, well, it was last year because half of the commissions go in the fall timeframe, which when I was the liaison to the Library Commission, that was in November. It started roughly at 5 and then in 20 to 30-minute increments for the 6 to 7 commissions that presented that evening. As Commissioner Ye mentioned, it depending on the length of the presentation, it is a general time frame. The last set of presentations did elongate the time frame a little bit. My library commission at the time was at the end of the agenda. So once that information is available as far as when it starts, we will definitely share that with the commission to ensure that the commissioners know when to schedule that meeting for the 3rd. But the timing has not been set yet. But I believe the one in November of 2021, the start time was 5 p.m.
Thank you. And is there a specific way that they decide who goes first at these meetings?
There
No.
was not. It was the city clerk's office that put together that schedule.
The only difference is youth commission. If
Yes.
youth commission presents on the same day as you, they do get to go first.
Okay. So it's not alphabetical, or they don't draw out of a hat. Or,
It is
okay,
not.
great. Okay, so so that leaves us still with who wants to do it. Okay, Commissioner Valadez, are you
I-
volunteering or do you have a question?
I always volunteer to present, but I think it would be appropriate for ex-chair Daley to do the accomplishments and for you to do the plan, the work plan for. But if either of you don't want to do that, I never have any problem presenting.
So, Chair Daley, that's 2 of us asking if you'd like to do this.
No, thanks.
Okay. All right, so we're still without. Commissioner Wang, would you like to take a stab at it this year?
I will be on an airplane, so I will not be available.
Okay. All right. And Commissioner Ye, with the experience? No? All right. And then I'm going to go to, so we have Janine Valadez is happy to do it. So I say we go.
Can somebody else do the next year's plan?
Okay. So Vice Chair Corrigan, are you going to do that?
Sure.
Okay. All right. We've got our people. All right. So you two can get together and talk about how you want to do it, what you want to do. Perfect. Thank you. I would have done it, just so you know. I just was hoping. I know, but I was really hoping you'd go for it.
I totally would have ran into that burning building.
I would have. I was on my way in. Oh, yes.
Chair Morris, Commissioner Daley has his hand raised.
Yes. Thank you. Commissioner Daley.
I just want to note that if we can, I know Commissioner Wang's going to be on an airplane. If we can be in attendance, as many of us that can attend should attend.
Mhm.
Council noted for the record last time that our commission was fully in attendance at that joint meeting. And there were a number of, most of the other commissions, in fact, had, in some cases, only the presenters present.
That was pretty bad.
So it's a good show of support for everybody to be there that can be there. I'll be there and happy to answer questions or provide support, chip into whatever. But I do like the idea of somebody who hasn't presented to council, getting the opportunity to participate in that. So that's why I don't want to volunteer, but I fully intend to be at the meeting, and I hope everybody else can.
And I second that. I think it's great if we can show up as the team that we are. And Commissioner Wang, we'll just fill you in on the fun you missed. All right, and yes, Recreation Manager Chu.
Just on the logistics side, generally speaking, the staff liaison or support staff, if there is going to be any type of PowerPoint presentation that needs to be shared, it is upon staff that would need to have that information so that we are the ones that are sharing the information. So if there is a PowerPoint, we would usually need to have that in advance. And then staff would be the one that would be driving that portion of it. Just wanted to share that information.
Great, thank you. And is there anything else that the presenters need to know?
No, the only, in regards to schedule, as soon as that is set, we will share. And as an example with the Library Commission, I gave the general time frame because, again, in November, the Library Commission was last. They ended up being 20 or so minutes behind because it encroached that way. So usually when we sent out that schedule, it was a general time frame. And so we'll share that information once it's set. That was the only other piece I wanted to share just from past experience with the last set of presentations to council.
Vice Chair Corrigan.
I just had one question on the duration. I think you said it was 20 to 30 minutes. So do you plan for 20 minutes of presentation, 10 minutes of Q&A? Is that kind of, okay. Thanks.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And a little bit about former Chair Daly and I were speaking earlier in a meeting, and I had mentioned that I thought some of the accomplishments weren't exactly like full-on accomplishments. And so we talked about sort of an educational aspect where we as commissioners were getting education and helping us do. And that was a really great thing about last year, actually, was we did get a lot more education. We had guest speakers, we had presentations. So maybe presenting that in a way that says these were educational moments for us. And, that we were basically, I would say, given a gift of learning more that helps us with doing our job, so to speak, better. Not that it's a job, fulfilling our volunteer commitments in a more equitable and even-handed way. So I don't know, as you guys come up with presentation, that would be one of the things, is to highlight, like we're the real, like, we got this done kind of thing, and this is what we learned kind of thing, maybe. So that was my only input on that. Okay. Any questions about that or any other input from anybody? No? Okay. So if I'm correct, we are done with fiscal year 2022-23 discussion and can now move on to item number 5, which is subcommittee guidelines. And this is to take a moment to review our guidelines. And if we have recommended changes, make those recommended changes to the guidelines. So maybe take a minute, find your guidelines if you need to, and then let's talk about them. And I can start with, does anybody have anything to say about the guidelines that they want to share with us or want to talk about? No? Did everybody get a chance to read them? Okay. All right, great. Commissioner Valadez, do you have a question? No, okay, looked like you were gonna say something. Okay, well, I have input on this one. So I just thought when I read them, we had a year of still dealing with COVID, not being able to do a whole bunch. And we also saw changes within our staff and at some of the higher level of management. So there was, it was a little harder to get a lot of things done last year. And when I read the guidelines, I thought, I'm not sure we accomplished what we were going for in these guidelines. So one of the things, and I actually think it was Commissioner Daly mentioned this in the meeting earlier about maybe putting into the guidelines, having monthly meetings. So it feels like it would be a good idea for people to schedule monthly meetings. And I just wanted to ask, like, what works about these guidelines for you, or what doesn't work about these guidelines? So if you're reading them and you're thinking about them and you think, gosh, did I do this or didn't I do this? And if you did do it, how did this help you do what, work on our work plan? And if you didn't do it, why not? What doesn't work about these guidelines? So anybody want to take a stab at this? Answering that question? Like, do you feel like you did what you signed on for last year? Do you feel like you met with your subcommittee members on a regular basis? Was there any way you could have done more? Kind of see what I'm asking here. I'm brainstorming, how can we do more this year with our work plan? Yes, Commissioner Valadez.
As I look at the 3 bullet points on the background of the document, I mean, if I just take, by example, our JEDI subcommittee, we did all 3 of these items. But then for item 1, which is arrange to meet or connect between commission meetings, once our big project, the inclusivity project, kind of went over the wall to staff, then we didn't have a pipeline. That's one thing that you and I were so focused on the JEDI, the inclusivity project, that when that kind of abruptly went over the wall because of the surfacing issue, we weren't able to continue the rest of our work. And so our regular meetings then waned as a result. They were very regular for a while, and then they kind of trickled away. So, I think it's in there as far as arranging to meet and connect between regular commission meetings. Maybe putting some guideline about, derived pipelines, brainstorm and derive pipeline of projects in case priorities change or something like that, because that's the only thing that I could think of that's really missing from here is, to proactively instruct future commissioners, because this is intended for, new commissioners, always plan for more, always brainstorm for more than what you possibly can do in case priorities change and you need to go do some other work. Because you and I went from extraordinarily busy to kind of into a stall that lasted like 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I'll add to what you say and say, we probably could have continued to meet and come up with, all right, what else are we going to do? And we didn't do that. So we just went, oh, okay. And then stopped a little bit. So maybe for our work and for other people to learn from each other, we can say, all right, well, if you hit a wall, then look at how can you go another direction and come up with other ways that you can attack whatever your subcommittee is supposed to be attacking. We had a similar problem with the Grant Park subcommittee as well. We sort of hit a wall, and then we're ready to go. And, we're ready to hit the ground running pretty much, I think, as a subcommittee. I could be speaking out of turn on that, but I think we're ready to go when that is ready to go with, staff help and action, that we're ready to jump in and start working on that subcommittee. But maybe there's something else we could be doing, as a subcommittee. So just adding in that piece, if I've got it right, about be persistent and proactive with continuing to work on it, even when you hit the wall.
Yeah. Encourage subcommittees to brainstorm beyond current priorities in case priorities change, and in case workloads change, so that you never have a gap. That's all I can think of. But other than that, the 3 points here basically, meet, come up with your operating procedures and formulate your scope and objectives. I mean, that's what any subcommittee does. So the only thing that's missing is load yourself up with work, make sure you're working.
I
And
do
meeting.
also think that, kind of having a validation back with staff, at a sort of periodically, just to make sure that what you're doing is still kind of relevant and a priority for staff. I think, where, some of the things that I was working on or thought I would be working on, it didn't quite resonate in terms of staff priorities, or is it too far sort of down the horizon to really have any kind of immediacy. And so I think that's why, sort of a few meetings ago, the guidance came down and the clarification that, we should be working on things that are priorities that either city council had established or that staff is establishing, because we're a body that is supposed to assist and be a resource, for staff. And so, if we find ourselves working on something that, just kind of isn't on the priority list, then, we should just cut that and then, help out, another committee, right? So like Teresa or Chair Morris, we were working on, the performance aspect, or I was working on, programming, but that wasn't, anything that was a priority or was necessary.
So do a check-in with staff and make sure that what we're working on, it fits with what they see as important to be working on at the time.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right, I think that's good. Does that fit for staff? Yeah, that works. Okay. All right. So, I would say, again, we had these, walls we hit thanks to COVID. So, a lot of it had to do with, we aren't meeting in person. We aren't planning anything for events. So that's part of it. Yes, Commissioner Daly.
I think part of the problem is probably already fixed because of the work plan. The work plan comports with the objectives that council has set and has been, facilitated by staff, whereas the work plan that we created going into last year had a number of items that were just weren't reflected in, council priorities or CIP or anything else. So I'm hopeful that we won't have, such a situation.
You're on mute.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add to the guidelines? Okay, so we're happy with them generally, but if I've got it right, we'd like to add to encourage brainstorming beyond current priorities to avoid gaps in actions, in making progress. Is that? Does that sound? Yeah, Commissioner Valadez, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, that's roughly it. It's this difference. Commissioner Wang made the comment, we're here to assist, we're here to be a resource. And I know that's a big part of our job, but we're also an advisory council, and we need to use our expertise, whether it's personally derived or group derived as a commission over time, to come up with ideas that we can either put in a file somewhere or bounce off staff and or other governing bodies, for potentiality. I mean, I don't want to only be a reactive commission. I don't think we should be. Of course, we're constrained because we can't make demands of staff if they cannot fill them and it's not in line with goals. I understand that. But like pop-up activities was a really good example. My understanding is that times are still tough on the staffing side. We can't expect a lot of bandwidth from staff. So to the extent that pop-up committee is coming up with 25 different ideas And, you know, there's discussion about prioritizing them 1 through 25 and laying them out project wise, how many people are needed, this, that, what supplies are needed, what budget is needed. And then take that instrument over to staff and say, is anything here feasible with your help? Or can we do this on our own? You know, and all we need from you is schedule availability. That's to me a more proactive way to go about, say, doing pop-up rather than waiting for staff to have the time to talk with us about pop-ups, which will probably be very difficult because they're so busy. I'm hammering on pop-up only because it's near and dear to my heart. It's near and dear to your heart. I just hope we as a commission, we can be in line with city council goals, in line with staff goals, but at the same time, continue to be creative and proactive on ideas for the future.
Right. Okay. And Ms. Richardson, you have your hand going.
I know that Vice Chair Corrigan has his hand up as well. I just wanted to know, it seems like there is a numbered point 4 that we're moving forward with. Chair Morris, you listed some verbiage. Are we adjusting that or are we going with what you said?
I don't know. Commissioner Valdez, it's basically your point. So do you want to go with encourage brainstorming beyond current priorities to avoid gaps in, I would say, in progress, but maybe you have another way you want that worded.
Yeah.
And if you want to work on it.
Yeah,
I'm always happy to review the recordings and get the exact wording, but I want to make sure that we have it correctly. The idea that the two of you have correctly.
Right.
I heard that there might be 2 bullets added. One
Yes,
was
there's one other bullet. Mhm.
Okay.
the, you know, subcommittees should work in alignment with staff and council priorities and according to the work plan. However, they are always encouraged to be expansive and derive ideas and projects that might be considered in the future. That's vague enough, but still encourages them to be proactive.
Okay.
And then the
Okay.
5th one had to do with checking back with staff, which I believe Commissioner Wong brought up.
Well, then I'm going to add into this, which my intention when I was thinking about this was just keep meeting and keep talking about what your subcommittee topic is and how are there ways that you can work on it differently. So that pretty much works with what you're saying, Commissioner Valadez, but I wasn't thinking kind of go beyond what the subcommittee task was. It was more, if you hit one wall, go, okay, well, how do we get around that wall and work on some other aspect of this?
Yeah, inherent in my comment is still staying within the scope of your subcommittee.
Okay, great, all right.
Completely obsolete.
Okay,
You know, Cindy faced that this year, right? You know, working on adult fitness just fell off the table, and her endeavor, you know, the question is how much of her time would she have felt productive pursuing adult fitness evaluations, knowing that it's nowhere on the work plan and it wasn't even in the near-term CIP, with the exception of replacing the place at Hillview. So I can put myself in her shoes as a new commissioner and kind of feel kind of upset about that, okay, well, here's my subcommittee. We're not, I mean, here I'm speaking for you, Cindy, Commissioner, you know, feel free to articulate what your concern was, but I felt great empathy for your situation.
Okay, can I ask another clarifying question?
yes.
Chair Morris, your second addition, I want to double check that it is in addition to what is already point number 1, which is arrange to meet or connect between regular commission meetings. Do you want to have another point in addition to that, or would you like to make wording changes to that one? Because those seem to.
It seems like it would just be arranged to meet monthly.
Okay.
Between commission meetings. I mean, that would just spell it out, just meet monthly.
Arranged. Okay, I can make that adjustment.
Okay. And then, so could you repeat what Commissioner Valadez said for hers? Well, it's for ours, but can you, it's okay if you can't.
No, I probably can't. I have
Okay.
what I thought was a nice approximation, and then I was going
You're
to
gonna listen.
pause the recording every half a second to make sure
Okay.
that I was perfect on the word choice. But what I basically have is scribbles.
All I want
oh,
to make sure is it has stay within the scope of the subcommittee. I don't want it to be like people go, great, we'll go off and we'll look at all these far out things that we can do. I just want to make sure that that part about working within the,
It does have
parameters we're supposed to work in.
it does have the priorities of the work plan.
Are you going
I'm
to
actually, I don't really know what any of these words say, and I just wrote this down.
That's fine. That's fine.
And I would be fine with adding a prepositional phrase that, staying within the scope of the charter of the subcommittee.
Just so if somebody's reading it, they get that this is not where they're gonna go off into, the outback and start digging for stuff. So, okay.
So if I did not have that prepositional phrase previously in there, Commissioner Valadez, I will make sure that it is in there now.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. And Commissioner Ye, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay, and Vice Chair Corrigan, did you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I saw hands. I'm just trying to figure it out. Okay.
I guess the suggestion I had, which I think ties into what was said, is in essence, come up with a project plan and review it with staff. Because I think for the subcommittees I was working on, we kind of had a direction, what were we trying to come up with, the scope of our work, and what's the end deliverable that you're aiming for? And that and then when are you going to deliver that? So come up with a basic plan because we have a 1-year time period. What are we going to accomplish? That's what I think we should be doing in a nutshell. So we have these meetings, but you should have an ultimate sort of simple project plan. I'm not saying a big complex project plan, just saying, this quarter we'll try to do this, next quarter we'll try to do that.
So Vice Chair Corrigan, could that perhaps be a 3A adjustment? So you already have for 3 that you are formulating the scope and objectives, and then 3A be that you share those with staff and formulate a plan?
Yes. Perfect.
I like the quarterly idea though, too. I like the idea of like having, that it's.
But we don't have to be too prescriptive either, I don't think.
Okay.
But.
All right.
The other way to capture this is in the second paragraph in the commissioner handbook. Maybe we don't want to change the commissioner handbook.
We can't.
It says that he is responsible for generation of reports and analyses. It really should be generation of project plans, reports, and analyses. But you're right, we don't want to change the commissioner handbook. So yeah, we need to add it up top.
I can't imagine what that would take. So, okay. And then, yes, so making sure that the checking in with staff, that other point was check in with staff to confirm that it's still a priority with staff so that the subcommittee's task or chosen task is still a priority so that would be an additional point to make, right? An additional number.
Given that it's about the scope and objectives, I think it could be a 3A.
Okay, that's fine. I want to make sure that Commissioner Wang's point is in there and is clear, to just keep checking and make sure that it's actually working. So it sounds like, I know it's in the commissioner handbook, and we get reminded of this, but sort of the pecking order of how this works, that commission is, top dog, and we are there to serve at their pleasure, and we work as an advisory to them. And then we work with staff So residents are actually the very top, then commission, and then staff and us. And so that working together is crucial. Yeah, so I just want to make sure people understand that. And if you don't have a copy of the commissioner handbook, if you're new and you don't have a paper copy and you do want one, I'm not trying to give Ms. Richardson more work to do, but I would highly recommend that you get a paper copy from her of the commissioner handbook. And I also, again, not trying to make more work for staff, but if you prefer to get a paper copy of the agendas each month, that's also available. So if you don't want to copy them yourself, or you prefer to have them the way she does them, then just so that you know that it's available.
Thank you, Chair Morris, Teresa.
Yes.
That is something we were going to start to phase back into a transition period. We used to provide paper copies for all in-person meetings. So any commissioner who was able could pick theirs up in advance. Otherwise, I would bring them to the meetings and hand paper copies of the entire packet to each commissioner. We are going to phase back into that. So we are not meeting in person yet, but anyone who'd like a paper copy, I'm happy to provide that and have it available at the community center. And then as we move back into in-person meetings, I will have them available for everyone.
Great, thank you. And so again, the commissioner handbook hand guide is very helpful if you don't have a copy of it. I'm a paper person, so that's why I'm saying that. It's very helpful to have it in front of you and to be able to page through. Okay, so is everybody happy with what we've just talked about for the guidelines? Show of hands, maybe? Great. Do we need to make it a motion that we've made these changes? Yes, Commissioner Daly.
If you want to do a motion, you could just simply move for a resolution to adopt those guidelines.
As discussed.
Yeah. I don't think it requires a motion and a vote, but if you choose to do a motion and a vote, I think it would be for a resolution to adopt the guidelines as discussed.
For the entirety of the guidelines.
Yeah.
But if we don't need it, I think we're okay without it. Okay. Unless staff thinks we need to do that for any reason.
How will the minutes reflect this item then? Will it just say it was discussed? It won't say that changes were made?
Correct.
Maybe we should.
Is the document going to be included with the minutes? These are action minutes. Everybody should know that action minutes mean that the only thing that's referenced in the minutes is the actual entry from the agenda. And if there was a motion, who moved, who seconded, and what the final vote was on a given item. Almost no description or discussion or sort of retelling of the conversation whatsoever would be in the minutes.
Since the packet exists in the public right now with these 3 bullets, taking the viewpoint of as a member of the public for a moment, and we added 2 bullets, I would hope that somebody would publish those in the public, to the public again, so that they could see if they're thinking about being a commissioner in the future, they can see this. So perhaps we should do a resolution.
If there is a motion, they will appear.
Yeah, I think we should then, so that it's public. Seems more.
Your motion?
Yeah, not my strength. So I move that we accept the changes to the commissioner guidelines per the conversation this evening, and that's it.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have Commissioner Valadez. They will be in your next minutes. You will be able to see them written out word for word. There will be adjustments made if any are necessary, but they will reflect the conversation that was had because we do have a recording of the conversation. So I'm going to take a roll call vote. Chair Morris,
Yes.
Vice Chair Corrigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ye,
Yes.
Commissioner Valadez,
Yes.
Commissioner Wang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Daly.
Sure.
I have those subcommittee guidelines unanimously approved.
Perfect. Thank you. Given that, I believe that we've covered the items for consideration and are now moving on to reports. If any of the subcommittees have any reports that they want to share with us. Anybody have anything to report this time through? I'm kind of guessing not. So, okay, seeing no hands, I'm gonna move on from there and ask if staff has any reports for us.
I do. Thank you, Chair Morris. So the first item that I wanted to report on is that as the current staff liaison to the Senior Commission, the commission was actually quite enthusiastic about collaborating with the Park Commission on the idea of pop-up activities. So I just wanted to share that information that they are really they're excited about that opportunity and are going to be including that on their work plan, as it was indicated that it should be a work plan item to facilitate multiple commissions kind of working together and collaborating. The second part is just an update of where we are on the pickleball project. So we are continuing to work with the community group. We did take a look at all the feedback that we had received, not only in the presentation to the Park Commission, but also the Senior Commission. We are including actually options at all sites, which is Marymead, Montclair, Rosita, and Mackenzie, to provide opportunities throughout the community, but we did increase the number of available courts. Sorry, that word was escaping me at the moment, at Rosita. The main point, which I know was mentioned earlier, and continuing to work with this community group, but with the designation at Mackenzie, with the addition of the dog park, we were, at least on the staff side, still concerned about the limited parking that we have at Mackenzie. So we are working through those concerns as far as the number of courts available at Mackenzie. And at least initially, this is our initial plan. And if adjustments are needed, we will make those adjustments. But that's where we currently are for Mackenzie. We're working on outreach. And then at this time, timeline-wise, we're anticipating that adjustments to the courts are anticipated for early summer, so late May, early June. Exact timing is still being worked out, in addition to what else we need to put together as in regards to equipment and signage and all of that. So we're continuing to work staff-wise on that. The next part, and excited to share that we have our upcoming Bunny Bound event this Saturday, and that is planned at the community center from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It is by registration, and I know our front office staff, including Ms. Richardson, we've been working to open up additional slots for those that were on the wait list. So we're very excited. It has been a little while since we have been able to do some in-person events. So I know staff is extremely excited to provide this opportunity to the community. And then also we are opening and pushing spring and summer registration. That is currently open not only for spring classes, which will go from this month, April, through the beginning of June, but also our summer camps starting in mid-June. So all of those opportunities are available for registration on our city's website. So really excited about just having continued recreational opportunities for the community. And then the final one that I had, and that was mentioned, I think, vaguely at the beginning of the meeting, but the commission, the Parks and Recreation Commission does have a current vacancy. Unfortunately, the appointed potential commissioner did decline the appointment. And so with that vacancy, it will pending council direction on what options are available. The information I wanted to share is that generally speaking, there are 2 time periods where they do commission recruitments. And so the next recruitment process will go into the fall. They generally open that process at the end of July. And leave it open for a period of time and interviews and those types of things. And then appointments are usually made end of August, beginning of September. So that is one option. They could also choose to possibly move more quickly, but currently working with City Council to figure out what option might that they decide to take. So wanted to share that with the commission. But that concludes my report, and happy to answer any questions that the commissioners may have. Commissioner Valadez.
Just real quick, how many courts were you looking to put at Mackenzie?
At Mackenzie, it was the 4, so that it was more than the 2 at the other locations, which was Montclair and also Marymead, specifically on the concern for parking. We were with some of the other elements like the dog park coming to Mackenzie. At least on the staff side, we're concerned about the limited parking at Mackenzie. So at the moment, we are currently planning for 4 courts at Mackenzie.
Any other questions, commissioners? I have a question that also piggybacks onto what Commissioner Valadez just asked. So could you tell us the courts, how many at each of these parks, and how, because Marymead was talked about, but the limited parking was a real concern at Marymead. But anyway, how many pickleball courts at each park now?
Sure. 2 are planned for Montclair, 2 are planned for Marymead, 4 are planned for Mackenzie, and 6 are planned for Rosita.
Okay, so we do have one park with 6.
Correct.
Okay,
And Rosita was specifically identified for that because of the increased amount of parking that is available at Rosita.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And Commissioner Wang.
Just on that, are there lights at those locations?
The only location that currently has lights is Mackenzie. All the other sites do not currently have lighted courts.
Wait, I thought Marymead
I
had,
thought Marymead had lights.
yeah, Marymead has lights.
Okay.
Because I go by there late at night and there it's lit up, so.
I stand corrected.
I think it might be on demand though. So there's some way that it's controlled. I
You
don't
just
think,
push a button.
yes, so I think it's not on unless someone's there, which is ideal. But so Rosita's not lit up?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Valadez.
Why not 10 at Rosita?
So that would actually take up all of the tennis courts, and after presentations to both the Park Commission and the Senior Commission, we did hear from a few of the local tennis players. Again, the combination of the pickleball courts, which would affect the tennis, we tried to at least leave one untouched tennis court. And so that would be true with the exception of Mackenzie, which in order to do 4 would affect both tennis courts at Mackenzie. So this again, we're using this as an opportunity since there are no outdoor pickleball opportunities right now. We are using this as an opportunity to determine interest and what is working. If we do need to make an adjustment, we do plan to do that after evaluating how the interest level is at each of those locations.
Right, so we're going from 0 to 14 pickleball courts.
Correct.
I did my math right. Okay,
You are
thank you.
Two are going to be used. Still be-
Sorry, Commissioner Valadez, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say the 2s, they won't be used. They'll use by maybe random kids that want to give it a try and maybe a shy adult, but they're not, pickleball is all about group think. So that's going to be interesting. But anyways,
Yeah.
it is.
We'll see how, yeah. Great, thank you for that. Any other questions regarding staff updates, announcements? No, okay. So we have some other items on the request for future agenda items. So I'm sorry, yes, Commissioner Daly. Wait, you're muted.
If we are there now and we're at request for future agenda items, I have one that I want.
Yes, we are.
Okay, I would like a report from staff on the Park and Lou Fund and what's in it and what's projected and modeled and what demands there are on it. What the limitations are that we can spend the money on and so forth. We've gotten such a report in the past. It's very useful, not only for us, but I think it's also really important for the residents to have an opportunity to tune in and get that report as well.
I
Of
agree.
course. Do we have any, we need to have several people echo that? Okay.
It's what I was gonna ask
Great.
for. Great, okay.
It's on for future agenda.
So
There are-
just for people who can't see, I don't know that
I'm
that was
sorry.
unanimous, but most of the commissioners raised their hand and
Yeah.
wanted it. So,
It doesn't need to be unanimous. We only need 3 commissioners, I believe, and we had at least 4. So
Yep.
the majority of the commission, right from the get-go, wanted to have that.
right. Anybody else have anything they want on future agenda items? I don't see any hands going up. Okay, so I think that we have covered what we need to cover for this evening in this meeting. So it is 9:03. Sorry, Commissioner Ye, did you have anything? I don't know why I keep thinking I see your hand moving. Okay, so it is 9:03 PM and I call to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you,
Bye,
staff. Okay, bye.